The topic that we're going to be talking about today is a topic that is not often discussed, but that is why I wanted to chat about it today and talk with another incredible healer who will be joining us live in just a moment. So I am really excited about these topics. If these topics go against your beliefs or if they make you feel uncomfortable in any way, I encourage you to take a step back and find something that feels like it resonates more with you. It does not mean that healing is not for you. It does not mean that these topics are scary or bad or anything like that. But I know that we have a lot of questions about these topics a lot of the time, and there aren't a lot of places that we can go to discuss this stuff, right? To ask these questions, to get our questions answered, and to even just have an open conversation about it. I had no idea that I was going to be leading people through past life healing and past life regressions when I started my own healing journey. I just kind of set out wanting to feel different than how I felt before. And through all of the years, it led me to where I am now, which I do past life regressions with my clients. And I also just went through a period of doing weekly past life regressions every single week for 8 weeks and going through like 30 plus past lives. So I'm honestly still integrating all of that myself, which is why I wanted to bring another incredible healer on board to help break this down so that we can all just be part of this discussion together. So let me just add him on. Hello,
Hi,
Brandon.
Marissa. How are you?
So incredible to have you here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here with your community. You look
Yeah,
so radiant today. What is your secret?
I have 3 ring lights from
Oh my
Amazon.
God.
The
See,
Amazon
see,
gods
when
have
I use
blessed
ring
me.
lights, it just exposes everything. It's like, oh, you can tell how many hours of sleep I got the night before when I use a ring light.
I feel you. I just want to do a quick energy update with you, maybe just to start off our conversation. I
Sure.
know for me, this has been a super heavy week. Have you felt that as well?
Oh, yeah. I mean, from an astrological standpoint, I'm sure you're into astrology, I bet. We had Uranus going direct, which is awesome. Obviously, we have Venus and Mercury still retrograde. We had the full moon in Cancer, which is the most emotion full moon you can have because, Cancer loves to sit with that water, which is our emotions. So it's been, but this is the best week to tap into your spirituality, right? Because when Uranus goes direct, Uranus really rules. It's called the Great Awakener. So it wants you to wake up quickly. So when it's going direct, it says, what we did the last several months was to recharge you. Now we're going to move full force ahead. Even if things are still in retrograde, Uranus is the Mac Daddy to Mercury and Venus. It's like, they say that Uranus is the higher vibration of Mercury because
Mhm.
it looks more at the collective visionary technology, and Mercury's more like the day-to-day technology of language and communication and travel. So there's so much exciting stuff when Uranus makes moves. And we're so used to Mercury and Venus even going retrograde that those are things we stumble through every now and then. But when the outer planets do that, it feels like an actual shift is happening as opposed to obstacles.
Yeah. So for me personally in my life, the way that that showed up was like a lot more anxiety, differences in sleeping. Like you can really feel and see the symptoms of
Mhm.
these changes in your life. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that for any other highly sensitive people, empaths, healers that are on here and like, why am I feeling so out of sorts right now? Like you might be also experiencing just the energies of the earth, the energies that are being influenced by the planets and everything like that, and going through a bit of an awakening process through that just by being tapped in and here on this planet, which is beautiful, even though it can be uncomfortable. I know I've had an uncomfortable week personally, and if you have as well, it's good to remember, or not you, but just anyone listening.
Yeah.
It's good to remember that through the discomfort is where we learn those amazing lessons. This is when we can really cling to our spirituality, learn new pivotal concepts, and we're going to be talking about some of those today. So I love pivotal concepts because literally you can learn about one thing and it can just shift everything for you, like the way that you see yourself, the way you see the world, the way you want to interact with people, and all of that. So maybe today you will encounter some pivotal concepts on here. I just wanted to have you on, Brandon, because you are so eloquent in how you explain things, which you've already gotten a taste of. Thank you. And I get this question literally 10 times a day. Why should someone do a past life regression? So I wanted to let you take the floor and explain what, in your words, what is a past life regression? Why would someone want to do that? What's the value of that? Like, as a healer, we have been directed kind of into that. Why? Right?
Yeah, I think for me personally, I've done them and I've had them done on me. And for several years, I was doing more psychic medium work. So it was almost like innately part of a reading that I would regress someone, or I would go regress for them. I will say it's more beneficial if you allow the client or whoever you're working with to regress themselves. But sometimes people just want to know, right? You're always like, what happened? Especially as a healer, if they're trying to work through a really sticky issue in their current life and they have no awareness, even through meditation and contemplation, they have no awareness of what is keeping them stuck. Past life regressions are amazing when we realize that we've gotten to a certain point in our own inner work in this lifetime, and we're like, okay, I've forgiven mom, I've forgiven dad, I've forgiven those exes who hurt me, I've forgiven the institutions. What am I missing? And it's like, don't worry, honey. Sometimes that's ancestral, and sometimes that's just from your own incarnations in the past that are residual. And some of the best ways to do that is just the simple awareness that, oh, wait, that's not Marissa's in this lifetime. That's Marissa in, 3 lifetimes in the past that's kind of been pulling at her. And now it's time to release that because Marissa is really willing to upgrade and get closer and closer to that enlightenment and that self-realization. So for me, it's been really helpful when you're in those moments where you're like, I don't know what else is left there to talk. Like when you're with your therapist and you're like, there's nothing left to talk about. So why do I still feel like I'm suffering? Or everything's fine. So why do I feel empty? And there might be something pulling at you from previous lives.
Yeah,
do you find that
I
to be
know.
true?
Also, a lot of phobias I've found, like people who have fear of heights, fear of flying, fear of cars. Like you could have some sort of past life trauma that is still in your soul's memory, right? That could be influencing the way that you are acting and feeling in this lifetime. And so often in the Western world, we're so scared of this topic, right? Like I've been called names, I'm sure you have as well. There's a lot of fear even amongst the non-name callers, people who are curious, who are just like scared. Like it's normal to be scared of this type of stuff. But I find it very interesting that in more Eastern cultures, this is widely and culturally accepted, right? If someone's like, oh, I have this fear, you immediately look into the past life. You immediately look into this and figure things out. And I know there's thousands and thousands of stories from India of someone being like, oh, in my last life, I lived on this street. And they just like, the family brings them there. There's no shame. There's no, you're lying. There's none of that stuff. And I know for myself, like I came into this world and so many other healers do, or just highly empathic people, remembering, right? Like children have a very, very thin veil. Their soul the dimensions are so thin. So I remembered things from my past life, and I was like, wait, like I have a bird, like I totally have a bird. And the people around me in my lifetime were like, you are a liar, like you were born a liar. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, like I feel like I have a bird, even though I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
in this lifetime. And it was a very interesting experience for me. And if you're interested, if anyone listening to this is interested, there's so many incredible videos on YouTube of children who like distinctly remember and they can bring them there and there's no explanation. So I think in our Western world, we're kind of like, what is this? Like,
Mhm.
we're into the 3D over here so much. You have to be able to prove it. You have to be able to see it, like all of this. But just like in any concept, if you are open-minded enough, you'll always find the evidence. You'll always
Mhm.
find the proof for something too.
Yeah, totally. And that's why kids are such a good example, because they don't have enough time to develop the ego mind that starts to like say everything material is who I am and what exists. They're still like in that, like especially babies, they're aware, but they don't have a sense of I. They don't have that ego mind yet. So they're just like looking around, taking everything in like a little Buddha. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and they have those sense memories of those liminal spaces and those past lives, but they don't have that I ego developed yet enough to say, well, this is who I am now and this is who I was in the past. So it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting that we have that paradox, that we have to develop that I ego that often causes suffering for us in order to understand that, oh wait, this I ego has been with me throughout permutations in my past lives, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's and it and it's with me now, and I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't recognize it. I wouldn't. And this is, I think, not to confuse people, but I think this is why some people you'll find have similar memories or like archetypal experiences. Like someone, several people might have experienced the life of Cleopatra, and
Mm-hmm.
it's because they don't have. They're remembering that they weren't that I ego separate entity by themselves for in but once we start to grow up, we start to be like, no, this is me. I have one body and one experience, and I couldn't have ever experienced anything in the past life, nor could someone else have experienced something with me in that one body in the past. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
If anyone's interested in doing more research on this, I strongly recommend that you do. I know for myself, just to make sense of like what I was learning, I read the book Journey of Souls, also Dolores Cannon. So I'm a trained clinical hypnotherapist, as is Dolores Cannon. Dolores
Mhm.
Cannon was kind of literally the grandmother of past life stuff because she took people into deep hypnosis where they were fully in their subconscious mind and they would say like this is a past life thing, right? So she kind of, I'm sure it's explained in much more depth and detail in other ways, but just for like a really quick summary, you can always look her up. And I've really looked into her teachings and her methods, and it's so fascinating to see. So in hypnotherapy, we also learn that there's patterns in our consciousness, there's patterns in our subconscious that create patterns in the consciousness. So maybe you have a pattern of every time someone cuts you off on the freeway, you're like, F you, like you sucker, like, or whatever it is. So that pattern is due to a subconscious trigger. The subconscious trigger could be a part of your soul memory. That could be a part of a subconscious trigger that you've experienced for many past lives. So understanding a soul journey, it's so fascinating. And I think the coolest part about soul memories and soul journeys and stuff is like I do a method just intuitively, like through my guides, and that I have personally gotten to experience with my own healers as well, where it's almost like multiple past life things in one, which I'm sure that you do as well. Like you can be like, oh, I see this,
Mhm.
multiple things. And they are chronological, right? Because time is not necessarily linear at all
Yeah.
times. So, like, to make sense of all of this information that's deep in your soul's subconscious is so interesting and such a fascinating journey and way of going through life, right? Like so different than what's the new Starbucks order that they have out or something. Like, what is this soul story that I have within me? It's so cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think people don't access these past lives until they are ready, because I think if we were all just to come into this world and remember our past lives throughout our whole life,
Mm-hmm.
that would just be too much suffering to bear. Because the truth of so many people on their soul journey is that we've suffered way more than we've experienced bliss. So think about all the trauma you've experienced in your life right now, and then magnify that. And as the ego mind always likes to focus on what's wrong in a situation, we will more often than not focus on what the suffering was. Like, we always want to know, how did I die?
Mm-hmm.
Like we go right there. So it's like, that's a lot of traumatic memory to hold within your body if
Mm-hmm.
you aren't ready and prepared for it. So there's a reason why there's that veil for us,
Mm-hmm.
because the soul's going to remember the lessons, but the mind doesn't need to remember the details necessarily until the body starts to feel like, oh, this feels like a sense memory.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think it's super, super useful, again, for those times when you're like, where's this block? I don't have any reference for this block in my current life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, like, why am I not experiencing this or that? And it might be due to some past life lesson or experience, for sure. And like you said, phobias, like we have like things that like keep us, like, I used to have the worst phobia of feeling dirty.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes from a past life of living in filth and squalor. And chances are that was more of a recent past life, because it's a stronger phobia right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's neither here nor there. The point of it is that you don't have to own all these sufferings as a form of guilt of what like, you don't have to say, oh, I must feel this way because of some guilt or shame in this lifetime. No, it can just be residual energy.
Mm-hmm. And just because you've always felt some way doesn't mean that you will always feel that way. Like, I definitely have phobias as well. And like, it's really, really interesting. But just because we've always felt a fear, like, I'll share some trigger warning, anyone who is easily triggered. I'm going to share a little bit of a past life phobia trauma that I have. In one of my past lives, I was tortured. So in this lifetime, I was so scared of pain, so scared of blood, so scared of people. So, like, there's so many phobias in there. And I lived like that my whole entire life, always scared of breaking anything, a bone, scraping something, paper cut. Like, it was really a big deal for me. And I currently don't have that because of all of the past life healing that I've gotten to do in that lifetime, even with that version of me that was getting tortured, with the people who are doing that, right? Like, but first I had to do 16 years of that in this lifetime and here, and figuring out how to do that to even be able to know which way is up in my subconscious reality, right? I think also it's something that I personally was like, I don't get, was the idea of amnesia. Why we don't remember this stuff, why this stuff is hard to understand and complicated and everything like that. So in the Journey of Souls book, they talk about how when you are born, which is a traumatic experience in itself, the soul literally gets amnesia. Like, we elect into this life, and part of that is amnesia of the past to some degree so that we can be fully present in this life. And that's why so many of us are also very, very hesitant to explore that, because it takes away the current reality that you have since birth been trying to create in this dimension, right?
Yeah, I definitely consider being born the foundational trauma that all of us experience. Um, Regardless of whether it's easy on the mother or easy on the child, it's still the initial step into the illusion that you're separate. So you went from being joined with others at the soul level, and then being joined with mom in her womb, to then boom, immediately you're separate. And you're almost preparing for a life of feeling separate. And it almost like the amnesia is there to protect us from that heartbreak that we would experience all day long if we knew what we weren't experiencing, in between our incarnations. So it's like we're going to temporarily relieve you of this memory of bliss and oneness so that you can do the work that you agreed to do and have the experiences that you agreed to have. And that's why it's foundational trauma. And then everyone can find a lot of their traumas stem from that, whether it's a form of shame or feeling of rejection or feeling of abandonment. It can all come from that initial boom form of separation. And a lot of biblical scholars consider, especially mystical biblical scholars, consider the belief that we're separate as the original sin. And meaning sin not as in you're bad, but sin as the real translation as missing the mark. So we're missing the mark when we believe that we're separate. So when we believe that we're separate, we're actually doing damage to ourselves. And so, but it's a process that we, agreed to. And it is really interesting when you think about the harsh realities that we might have experienced with the torture. It's like, oh, what did you find when you kind of regressed and looked into why you experienced that?
Karma. Karma. And the karma that allowed me to experience that was so small. So I'm sure you have one too, like someone impersonating you right now, who's DMing people for readings, and like I have one.
Not yet. I think I have in the past, but hopefully not right now.
So I did that, not that exact thing, but like that type of thing in one of my lives. And it resulted in such horror. So yeah, after seeing that, I have a whole new respect for karma. I see karma in a completely different way. I do good to all beings and like take that to a whole nother seriousness, because the universal karma laws do not mess around. Like, lords of karma, thank you, please bless us all. So when you harm other people, you're gonna pay for that, and we don't need to like get revenge on people or anything like that, because as someone who's experienced that in my past life, that has that is a thing for sure. So yeah, it's a real motivator. Something that you said though that like literally almost made me cry, it touched my heart so deeply, was that about pain. And the way that my mind interpreted it is because of being a hypnotherapist and seeing things as the conscious and subconscious mind, it's almost like everything is stored in the subconscious to keep us from all the pain that we would otherwise be experiencing.
For sure.
Seeing all those wounds all the time. The subconscious mind is always turned on. You cannot turn it off. It's turned on when you're sleeping. That's why I listen to healing frequencies while I sleep. It's turned on even when you don't want to be paying attention to something, or even if something's just playing in the room, or even if you don't remember something. So even if you don't remember being born, even if you don't remember like any sort of things that could have happened to you as a baby, I just want to like say this because I feel like I see so many people that walk around being like, I'm not traumatized, I have no emotional wounds, all of that. And just because it's not in your conscious mind doesn't mean that you did not experience that as a traumatic event. You don't have to experience torture, like something that I have talked about on my page, for example, for it to be considered trauma, right? Like, think into a baby's consciousness level. They just came into the world. They're just here. Like, they just got separated from their mom, and now you're poking them with needles and it's cold. Like, how traumatic is that? That's really scary for a little baby, even if you don't remember it, even, you know, so there's these types of memories in our subconscious mind, in our soul, that play out in our life in different ways. And it doesn't mean that we're all like lost causes and wounded and all of that. No spiritual bypassing either. Like, we're here, we're present, we're ready to do the work and create the life that we want to create. Part of that is being able to have the clarity, the awareness to see, to look, the courage to be able to look at that. So thank you all so much for joining us and having the courage to dive into this new topic with us. Is there anything else that you want to add about soul journeys, past lives, all the fun juiciness that we've created?
No, I would just add on to what you were saying about trauma, because trauma isn't a specific event. It's not a particular event. It doesn't have to be, because someone can be in a car accident and not have trauma, and someone can be in a car accident and have trauma. Mm-hmm. Trauma is more of like an indicator of what parts of you left behind as a result of an event. Mm-hmm. So I know I'm traumatized if I've released a certain sense of me, a sense of innocence, for example, a sense of playfulness, a sense of vulnerability. If I went into relationships really open-hearted and then suddenly I don't, I know that a trauma happened. So if we extend that out to past lives, we know that those traumas can live and expand until they're ready to come up for review to be healed. And when things are ready to be healed and they come up for review, what it looks like is we're not getting a ledger of saying, this is a trauma, are you wanting to accept it or delete it? It looks like you being confronted with the same or similar situation, again, the patterns you were talking about, and choosing differently this time. So the past life.
Oftentimes we cannot do that on our own. We are not meant to do that on our own. This is a very like weird westernized ideology that is a limiting belief to the nth degree, that like you are meant to lead yourself and guide yourself through this flawlessly with flying colors and fart rainbows the whole time and never cry. Like, that is not what this is meant to be at all. I'm not saying this has to be the most painful possible process at all either, but Brandon and I are here for you so that you can reach out to us. Like, we do this for a living. We help people and guide people through this. We are experts. We are professionals. So you do not need to be trying to figure this out on your own. Of course, we mentioned books so that you can start researching this and getting into this on your own. But when you do a past life regression, of course, you need to have a professional guide you through something like that. But even if you're not ready for that and you're just like, I feel like I'm seeing patterns in my life that are uncomfortable, or I don't like the way that I feel when I'm on the freeway, or whatever it is, right? Like, we're not always going to know that we need the past life regression, and that might not be the first step. There's oftentimes, like, I can work with people for 3 months and we just work on this life before going into the past life too. So I just encourage you to, as you've had courage to join this topic and be open-minded and explore this, to also have the courage to ask your questions, take up space, like reach out to professionals. If either of us resonate with you, if there's other people that resonate with you, no one's going to be mad that you asked a question. Like, we are healers because we want to help you do what you want to do. So I strongly encourage you to look into that in your own life and act on that. Really, really act on that. Do not keep sitting on this for another lifetime. Like, you can create a new pattern. You can start to feel happier. You can let go of these fears and these ways of being. It really is possible.
Yeah. There is a lot of suffering that is wanting to be dissolved, and you can do it. I used to want self-help to be by my self-help, but it's so much more efficient and so much more joyful when you're doing it with someone who has mastery in any particular modality. So for sure, yeah, I agree.
Is there a specific way that you want people to reach out to you if they want to work with you, or like book a session right now?
Yeah, you can just message me on Instagram. I'm pretty active, so I'll get to you, or you can go to any of my links in my bio.
Yay. And if you have any questions, you can always comment them below. Either of us will get to them. If whoever gets to it first will get to it first. And we just send you so much love in this lifetime, in all lifetimes, in your entire soul journey. All of the love. Thank you so, so, so much, Brandon, for helping me talk about this difficult topic. I appreciate you so deeply.
Likewise. I mean, the work you're doing, the more I look into your videos and your background, it's pretty impressive, and it looks like you've turned a lot of your pain into powerful messages. So thank you for just even being you and sharing this space and inviting me to share as well.
This is actually Brandon and I's first conversation.
We've never talked before.
We've never talked before, and we just felt each other's energy, and I was like, I know that we're gonna have an amazing live together. Yeah. So I'm really excited to connect more with you, and hopefully maybe not publicly, so we can talk about our phobias and all our things.
Where are you located?
I'm in Irvine, California.
Oh, nice. I'm in West Hollywood.
Ooh, we gotta get together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, we do. Okay. I hope you have an amazing day, everyone. I hope you have an amazing day, Brandon, and so much love.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.